Solheim 39 glittered like a place where mistakes were too expensive to survive. Crystal chandeliers floated above the dining room in bright circles of gold. Marble floors reflected candlelit tables. A grand piano played near the skyline windows, soft enough to flatter conversation without interrupting it. Wealthy guests lowered their voices over tasting menus, rare wines, and plates arranged like small pieces of art. Inside Seoul's Orison Crown Hotel, Solheim 39 was not just a restaurant. It was reputation with silverware. Tiniola Adebari moved between tables with a polished silver water jug and a smile she had practiced until it no longer looked like effort. She was new. Everyone reminded her of that. The senior waitresses reminded her with glances when she used the service corridor too slowly. The maitre d' reminded her by calling her trainee in front of guests even after she had memorized the table map better than people who had worked there for years. The wine team reminded her by laughing softly when she pronounced difficult vintages correctly. But guests noticed her. That was the problem. At table 4, an elderly woman smiled when Tenny brought her the barley tea she had requested during her last visit. "You remembered," the woman said. Tenny bowed slightly. "Of course, madam." No lemon cup warmed first. At table 7, a French couple complimented the way she explained the pairing for the sea bream course. At table 12, a nervous young man proposing to his girlfriend whispered, "Thank you," after Tenny quietly moved the ring plate to the correct side without making a scene. Small things. Service things. The kind of things invisible people used to prove they were paying attention. Near the service station, Jang Miri watched all of it with a smile that never reached her eyes. Miri had worked at Solheim 39 for 7 years. Her bun was perfect, her gloves spotless, her posture sharp enough to cut paper. She believed hierarchy was sacred because she had survived beneath it long enough to benefit from it. "She performs humility well," Miri murmured. Yu Sabiol, polishing glasses beside her, gave a nervous laugh. "She is lucky guests are amused by foreigners." Miri's gaze hardened. Guests are amused by novelty. Management is not. Across the dining room, the front doors opened. The atmosphere shifted before the host spoke. Choi Un-sand, the maitre d', turned pale beneath his professional smile. The sommelier straightened so quickly he nearly dropped the corkscrew. 2 chefs peeked through the pass. Even the piano seemed to soften. Ryu Weizong entered alone. Black Italian suit, white pocket square, expensive watch, a face too handsome to look kind and too calm to look harmless. He did not scan the room like a nervous man. He let the room reveal itself to him. Head of Mokrian Reserve, Seoul's feared luxury logistics and rare wine recovery empire. A man hotel owners smiled at while fearing he had already found their hidden invoices. Years earlier, another luxury restaurant had served him counterfeit Burgundy and lost investors, reputation, and ownership before the season changed. No one wanted to serve Table 9 when he sat down. Table 9 was the VIP table beneath the chandelier, private enough for power, visible enough for status. Choi Un-sen clapped softly near the service station. "Miri, first course." Miri's lips curved. Then she looked at Tenny. "No," she said smoothly. "Let the new girl prove she belongs." Tenny turned. "Miri, Table 9 is not assigned to me. It is now." Sabiol lifted the silver tray from the station, but Miri took it and placed it into Tenny's hands. The tray was heavy. Too heavy, somehow. A composed plate, a small sauce vessel, 1 poured wine glass, polished cutlery, folded linen, and a printed service docket tucked beneath the tray lip. Miri leaned close enough for Tenny to smell her perfume. "Do not embarrass us," she whispered. "Though maybe that is asking too much." Behind her, Sabiol smiled into a glass. Tenny looked toward Table 9. Ryu Weizong sat alone, watching nothing and somehow seeing everything. Her rent was due in 8 days. Her hospitality certification payment had already been delayed once. Her younger brother's school transfer fee in Dublin could not wait for her pride to recover. She lifted the tray. Her hands trembled once. Miri saw it and smiled. Tenny stepped onto the marble floor and walked toward the most feared guest in the room. Halfway to Table 9, Tenny looked down. That was habit. Her mother had taught her never to trust a tray just because someone senior handed it over. Look once for balance, Mrs.
Adebari used to say.
Look twice for truth. Tenny looked once. The plate sat correctly. The linen was clean. The wine glass did not shake. Then she looked twice. The service docket read, Table 9.
Course 2.
Black garlic juice. Wine pairing, 2012 Burgundy. Guest restriction, sesame-free. No fermented shellfish. No unverified oil. Tenny's breath caught quietly. Course 2? Ryu Waizong had just arrived. No amuse-bouche had been served. No first course cleared. No wine presentation had occurred at his table. Then she saw the sauce card tucked beneath the rim of the plate. Sesame Perilla glaze. Her fingers tightened around the tray. Sesame-free. Sesame Perilla glaze. A violation. Not small. Not accidental. Her eyes moved to the wine glass. It was already poured. At Solheim 39, VIP wine was never poured before bottle presentation, especially not for Table 9. The garnish on the dish was also wrong. A thin black crisp that did not appear on Chef Guac's plating guide for the first tasting course. Tenny kept walking because stopping too abruptly would make the tray tilt. But inside, everything sharpened. If she served the dish, she would violate the guest profile. If she returned it without evidence, Miri would say she panicked. If she asked loudly for help, Choi Eun-san would accuse her of disturbing the dining room. She reached 2 steps from Table 9, then stopped. The silver tray steadied in her hands. Around her, conversations thinned. Ryu Waizong looked up. His eyes moved from her face to the tray, then past her shoulder toward the service station. He saw Miri watching. He saw Sabiel pretending to polish the same glass for too long. He saw the maitre d' freeze near the wine cabinet. Then his gaze returned to Tenny.
You saw something, he said. His voice was calm.
Not loud, but the room heard it anyway. Tenny swallowed. Yes, sir. What? Her heart struck hard against her ribs. She could still serve it.
Pretend not to know.
Protect herself for one more shift. But then the guest could be harmed. And the lie would become hers because she carried it. This tray does not match your table record, she said. The silence spread. Miri's smile flickered. Waizong leaned back slightly. Explain. Tenny lowered the tray carefully onto the side service stand without placing anything before him. The service docket says Table 9, Course 2. You have not received Course 1. The guest restriction states sesame-free and no unverified oil, but the sauce card says sesame perilla glaze. The wine has been poured before bottle presentation. The garnish does not match tonight's guide. I cannot serve this as correct. A few diners turned fully now. The maitre d' began moving toward them with a polished smile. Miri stepped out from behind the service station. Tenny kept her hands folded. Waizong looked at the untouched tray, then at her trembling fingers. Who handed it to you? Tenny did not answer immediately. Waizong's voice softened by 1 degree. They sent you to fail. Tenny's eyes lifted. The truth was too obvious to deny. Yes, sir. He looked toward the service station again. Then do not serve the lie. The word struck the dining room harder than broken glass. Tenny felt fear move through her. But beneath it, something steadier rose. She had not spilled. She had not panicked. She had stopped the tray before the lie reached the table. Choi Eun-san arrived with the kind of smile rich hotels use to hide accidents. Mr. Ryu, he said smoothly, bowing. Please accept our apologies. New staff can become overwhelmed under VIP pressure. Tenny felt the insult slide toward her like a knife under velvet. Waizong did not look at him. She does not look overwhelmed. Miri joined them, hands folded, expression wounded. She is very enthusiastic, sir. Sometimes enthusiasm becomes confusion. Tenny's face warmed, but her voice remained quiet. I am not confused. Miri gave a small laugh. Then perhaps you can explain to everyone why you stopped service in the middle of the dining room.
Tenny looked at the tray.
Then at the guest. Then at Choi Eun-san, whose smile was beginning to strain. She had learned in hospitality school that guests should never be dragged into staff conflict. But the conflict had already been placed on her tray and carried across marble under a chandelier. So she stayed factual. The guest profile says sesame-free, she said. The sauce card says sesame perilla glaze. The wine pairing was poured without bottle presentation. The docket timestamp is later than the kitchen dispatch would allow. The garnish does not match Chef Guac's plating notes. I was handed the tray, without verbal confirmation. A murmur moved through nearby tables. Mary's eyes hardened. New staff often panic under pressure. Tenny turned to her. Panic spills wine. It does not change sauce labels. The sentence landed cleanly. Somewhere near table 4, an elderly guest lowered her teacup slowly. Weizong's mouth almost curved. Choi Un-san stepped closer. This should be discussed privately. No, Weizong said. The maitre d' stopped. If the dish is correct, the log will defend you. If it is not, your silence is already confession. That removed the air from Choi's smile.
Tenny saw it.
So did Weizong. He turned to her. Who trained you? My mother worked formal dining rooms before hotel operations, Tenny said. Then I studied luxury hospitality service. She taught me details are how invisible people protect themselves. For the first time, Weizong looked at her not as a waitress in trouble, but as a professional who had just named the exact architecture of survival. The kitchen doors opened. Chef Guac Isel entered in white, her expression sharp enough to make junior cooks vanish behind the pass. She was small, elegant, and furious in the controlled way of chefs whose food had been touched incorrectly. What happened to my dish? She asked. Mary began. Chef, the new staff. Chef Guac lifted one hand. I did not ask for embroidery. I asked what happened to my dish. Tenny stepped back from the tray. I believe the sauce card and garnish were changed after dispatch, chef. Guac looked at the plate. Her face changed immediately. That is not my sauce. The dining room went colder. Choi Un-sen whispered. Chef, not here. Chef Guac's eyes did not leave the plate. If my name is on the food, then here is exactly where it belongs. Weizong folded his hands. Bring the dispatch log. Mary's shoulders tightened. Sabiol, still near the service station, looked suddenly very young. Tenny stood beside the untouched silver tray and realized the room was no longer asking whether she had failed. It was asking who had needed her to. The kitchen dispatch camera footage appeared on a tablet 6 minutes later. Choi Un-sen held it like evidence might stain his gloves. Chef Guac stood beside Weizong's table, arms folded. Tenny remained one step behind the side stand, hands clasped, resisting the urge to disappear. The diners pretended not to watch and failed completely. The footage began. Chef Guac plated the correct dish at the pass.
No sesame perilla glace.
No black, crisp garnish. The sauce card read black garlic juice. The wine was not present. Tenny was nowhere near the pass. Then Sabiol appeared in frame. She collected the sauce card, looked over her shoulder, switched it. Mary entered from the side station with a tray marker. She removed one docket and slid another beneath the tray lip. Another staff member, half hidden near the wine cart, poured a glass from an already open bottle. The footage ended. No one spoke. Sabiol covered her mouth. Mary's face went pale beneath perfect makeup. Chef Guac turned slowly toward them. You altered my service. Mary tried to recover. There must be context. There is, Weizong said. You expected the new waitress to carry the context to my table and be blamed for it. Choi Un-sen lifted both hands slightly. Mr. Ryu, we deeply regret this internal miscommunication. Miscommunication? Chef Guac's voice cut through the dining room. My dish was modified. A guest restriction was violated. A wine was poured without presentation. That is not communication. That is sabotage. Tenny stared at the floor. Relief should have come. Instead, fear deepened, because being right did not always protect workers. Sometimes it made management eager to remove the person who had made truth expensive. Weizong noticed the way her shoulders drew inward. The truth should not be more dangerous to the waitress than the lie was to the guest, he said. Tenny looked up. For a second, she forgot to hide how much that sentence meant. Choi Un-sen leaned closer. Perhaps we can continue in my office. They made the humiliation public, Weizong replied. The correction will be public enough. The maitre d' swallowed. Chef Guac looked at the wine glass. Who authorized the bottle? The sommelier was called from the cellar corridor. He arrived with the stiffness of a man walking toward a cliff. "I did not approve that pour," he said before anyone asked. Choi Eun-sen glared. The sommelier looked at Weizong instead. The bottle did not come from the locked VIP cellar. "Where did it come from?" Chef Guak asked. "Secondary storage cart. Procurement approval." That word changed the room again. Procurement. The invisible kingdom behind every luxury claim. Weizong's eyes moved toward the back corridor. "Bring the bottle," Choi Eun-sen said. "This is unnecessary." Weizong looked at him. "Then it will be quick." Tenny glanced toward Miri and Sabiol. The women who had smiled when her tray trembled now looked as though they had accidentally opened a door they had been warned never to touch. The bottle arrived on a linen-lined tray. A 2012 Burgundy. Or, at least, that was what the label wanted people to believe. Weizong did not touch it immediately. He let it sit beneath the chandelier light, as if giving the lie one final chance to confess. The sommelier placed the cork, capsule foil, and bottle beside the glass. His hands were tense. Chef Guak leaned in, but Tenny saw it first. The capsule embossing was wrong. Not obviously wrong. Luxury fraud rarely screamed. It whispered one detail too softly. The foil pattern lacked the tiny irregularity of the original producer's stamp. The label paper looked too fresh. The bottom edge had been trimmed with a blade, too clean for a bottle supposedly resting in a controlled cellar for years. Tenny heard herself speak before she could decide whether silence was safer. "The capsule is wrong." Every face turned toward her. Choi Eun-sen almost laughed. "You are a wine expert now?" "No," Tenny said. "But the embossing is too shallow, and the label paper is new. Also, the bottle was already open before presentation." The sommelier looked closer.
His face changed.
"She is right." Weizong finally reached for the cork. Mokrian Reserve did not only protect luxury assets. It tracked rare wine storage, authentication, and fraud across Seoul's elite hotels. Counterfeit wine had made men richer than narcotics because powerful people were often too embarrassed to admit they had paid thousands to drink a lie. "I did not come here for dinner only," Weizong said. Choi Eun-sen went still. Several counterfeit bottles have appeared in venues supplied through Orison Crown's procurement network. The kitchen staff at the pass exchanged glances. Miri looked at Sabiol with open panic now. A man entered from the procurement corridor before anyone called him. Oh, Rindon, hotel procurement director. Elegant gray suit, careful smile, eyes too quick. "I heard there was a concern," he said. Weizong studied him. "There is." Rindon looked at the table at the wine, then at Tenny. "An unfortunate misunderstanding over Burgundy 12. Tenny's gaze sharpened. No one had shown him the label. No one had said the vintage aloud after he entered. Weizong's eyes moved to hers. He had caught it too. "Burgundy 12. Weizong repeated. Rindon's smile thinned. Chef Guak stepped forward. "I want purchasing records. Tonight." Choi Eun-sen said, "Chef, procurement is not your department." "My name is on the menu," she snapped. "If my food is being served beside counterfeit wine and altered sauces, then it became my department the moment they used my reputation as garnish." Weizong opened the service docket again, then looked at Tenny. "You were not sent to serve me," he said. The room seemed to tighten around the words. "You were sent to take the blame if this reached my table." Tenny's throat closed, because she had known the tray was a setup. But she had not known she was standing at the edge of something larger than bullying. Miri's cruelty had been small. The system behind it was not. Weizong turned toward Choi Eun-san, Rindon, the senior waitresses, and the silent hotel executives gathering near the entrance. "Now," he said, voice calm enough to frighten everyone, "we find out how many lies this restaurant has been serving." The staff room behind Solheim 39 did not look like luxury.
Nos chandeliers. Nos skyline.
No marble glowing under candlelight. Just metal lockers, folded aprons, shift charts, service tablets, and the tired smell of people who were expected to smile for 12 hours and disappear afterward. Tenny stood near the doorway while Ryu Weizong's security team preserved the service station logs. Chef Guak Isel stood beside the office desk with her arms folded, fury held so tightly it looked elegant. Oh, Rindon, the procurement director, kept saying the same phrase. This is being exaggerated. Weizong looked at him once. Fraud usually says that before the records speak. Tenny's hands were still cold, but her mind had stopped shaking. She had noticed things before. Small things. Too small, she once thought, to risk her job over. Missing cash tips from private dining envelopes. Overtime entries changed after midnight. Guest allergy cards rewritten between shifts. Premium ingredient labels replaced with photocopied stickers. Staff meal deductions charged even when meals were not provided. Private wine bottles moved without sommelier's signature. She had written it all down because her mother's voice lived in her head. If they make you feel small, right, like someone tall will one day need the truth. When Weizong asked whether she had seen anything unusual before tonight, Tenny hesitated only once. Then she opened her locker. From the back of a folded cardigan, she removed a small notebook. Jiang Miri gave a bitter laugh. You kept a diary? Tenny looked at her.
No.
I kept dates. Chef Guac reached for the notebook carefully. Inside were clean entries, table numbers, shift times, missing envelopes, changed tip pools, incorrect labels, staff names assigned to incidents they had never caused. Choi Un-sen tried to close the notebook. Weizong caught his wrist without force.
No.
The maitre d' froze. Tenny turned to the last page and felt her stomach drop. There it was. A printed draft incident report, folded inside the notebook because she had found it earlier near the service printer and not understood why her name was already on it. Employee, Tiniola Adebari. Incident, VIP service failure at Table 9. Violation, guest restriction breach. Recommended action, immediate dismissal. The report was dated before she had ever picked up the silver tray. Chef Guac's voice went low. They prepared her firing before dinner. Miri looked away. Sabiol began to cry. Weizong turned toward the management office. No, he said quietly. They prepared a scapegoat, and suddenly the restaurant's beauty looked less like elegance and more like a stage built over theft. Hotel leadership arrived with faces polished for crisis. A general manager, a legal director, 2 compliance officers. One public relations woman whose smile disappeared when she saw Ryu Weizong standing beside the staff printer with a false report in his hand. Choi Un-sen tried to move everyone into a private boardroom. Weizong refused. If you were brave enough to write her guilt before dinner, he said, be brave enough to read it after evidence. No one wanted to. So, he handed the report to Choi. The maitre d's hands trembled as he read aloud. Employee failed to follow VIP allergy protocol. Employee created reputational harm. Employee demonstrated inability to handle high-value service pressure. Tenny stood very still. Hearing the words was worse than seeing them, because the report sounded official. That was how lies became dangerous. They learned grammar. Chef Guac stepped forward. The only person who protected the guest profile tonight was Tiniola Adebari. The sommelier added, the wine was unauthorized. A compliance officer held up the dispatch tablet. Camera footage confirms the tray was altered after leaving the kitchen pass. Mary's mask cracked first. It was supposed to scare her, she said. Sabiol sobbed. Mary told me to change the sauce card. She said Tenny would be fired for freezing, not for serving it. Mary spun toward her. Do not put this on me alone. Weizong's gaze sharpened. Then put it where it belongs. Sabiol covered her face. Procurement had the report template. Mr. Choi said if anything went wrong at Table 9, the new girl would be easier to dismiss than senior staff. Choi Un-san went pale. Oh, Rindon stepped backward. Only one step, but enough. Yun security from the hotel moved too late. Rindon turned toward the service elevator. Weizong did not raise his voice. Stop him. The elevator doors opened, then closed again, without him inside. 2 hotel security officers blocked the corridor. Rindon smiled like a man trying to remember whether arrogance still worked. This is ridiculous. Tenny looked at the false report, then at the people who had planned to turn her hunger for work into guilt. For the first time that night, she did not feel small. She felt clear. Oh, Rindon's office was cleaner than the kitchen and colder than the cellar. Inside his locked cabinets, compliance found 2 sets of purchasing records. One for the hotel, one for the truth. The first claimed imported truffles, rare burgundy, line-caught seafood, premium oil, heritage beef, and specialty vinegars from Europe and Japan. The second told a different story. Counterfeit wine bottles, fake truffle invoices, seafood substitutions, generic oils relabeled as boutique imports, staff tips skimmed through service charge adjustments, foreign workers listed as temporary liability risk, guest allergy cards altered to hide ingredient substitutions, bonus credits given to senior staff who kept complaints controlled. Chef Guac sat down when she saw her signature copied onto purchase approvals she had never made. My name fed this fraud, she whispered. Tenny moved closer.
No, chef.
They used your name because people trusted it. That mattered to Guac. Enough for her to stand again. Rinden's face had lost its softness now. You all enjoyed the prestige. Michelin stars do not survive on honesty alone. Weizong looked almost bored. Only frauds say that as if it sounds intelligent. Tenny stepped forward before she realized she had moved. You did not only steal from guests, she said. You trained workers to survive by hurting workers beneath them. The room quieted. Miri began crying silently. Sabiel could not look up. Tenny continued, voice steady. You made senior staff afraid of losing status, then gave them someone lower to blame. You made foreign workers easy to erase. You made junior staff compete for protection instead of dignity. No one interrupted, because she was right. The restaurant had not simply sold fake luxury. It had built cruelty into the service chain. Weizong ordered every record copied to external counsel, hotel compliance, and independent hospitality auditors before the Orison Crown could bury the scandal under settlement language. Rinden laughed once. You think this will protect her? People forget waitresses. Weizong looked at Tenny. No, he said. People forget silence. Records remember names. For the first time all night, Tenny believed hers might survive the room. By midnight, Solheim 39 had stopped pretending dinner could continue normally. Most guests had left. Some lingered near the lobby, hungry for gossip disguised as concern. Table 9 remained untouched beneath the chandelier. The original tray had been sealed as evidence. The counterfeit wine removed. The false report copied. The procurement office locked. Chef Guac returned from the kitchen carrying a new plate herself.
Simple. Precise. Correct. No unauthorized garnish. No hidden ingredient. No lie.
Behind her, the sommelier carried a verified bottle from the locked VIP cellar. He presented it properly, opened it in front of everyone, and poured only after Weizong nodded. Then Weizong turned to Tenny.
Seat.
Tenny blinked. Sir, I am on shift. Tonight, you protected the table better than everyone paid to manage it. The words traveled through the staff still gathered near the service station. Tenny did not sit immediately. Waitresses at Solheim 39 did not sit with VIPs. Not foreign junior waitresses. Not women whose names had been written into dismissal reports before dessert. Chef Guac pulled out the chair.
Seat, Tenny.
So she did. Not as a guest pretending to belong. As a worker being publicly acknowledged. Weizong did not make a spectacle of gratitude. He simply asked, What do you want? Tenny's answer came faster than expected. My job protected. Junior staff interviewed safely. Stolen tips returned. False reports erased. Foreign workers removed from scapegoat lists. Allergy and restriction cards double verified. And service training based on dignity, not fear. Weizong listened without interrupting. I can fund an audit. Not controlled by you, Tenny said. A few people looked shocked. She did not lower her eyes. Not controlled by the hotel either. Weizong's expression softened with respect. Agreed. Tenny looked at the table, the correct dish, the verified wine, the chandelier above them. I did not need to be rescued from service, she said. I needed service to stop being used against me. Weizong nodded once. And at table 9, where she had been sent to fail, Tiniola Adebari finally finished the shift no one had expected her to survive. Months later, Solheim 39 still had chandeliers. Still had marble floors. Still had skyline windows and candlelit tables and guests who arrived in quiet luxury. But the restaurant moved differently now. The service station had cameras covering every tray exchange. Allergy cards required 2 signatures. Wine bottles came only from verified seller access. Tip distribution was transparent. Junior staff could report abuse through an independent system. Foreign workers were no longer assigned blame before investigations. Procurement records were audited outside the hotel. Choi Un-sen was gone. Oh, Rinden faced charges. Miri and Sabiol kept their jobs only long enough to testify, then left the industry quietly, carrying the lesson that cruelty was not the same as survival. Chef Guak rebuilt the restaurant under standards she could finally trust. And Tenny became assistant service captain. Not because Ryu Weizong demanded it, because every record of that night proved she had earned it before anyone admitted it. One evening, Weizong returned to table 9.
No dramatic entrance.
No fear rippling through the dining room, just quiet attention. Tenny approached with a silver tray. Her uniform was still black and white, gloves still immaculate, posture still graceful. But her hands were steady now. Weizong noticed. She noticed him noticing. No trembling tonight, he said. Tenny placed the tray beside him with a calm smile. No lies on the tray tonight. For a moment, the chandelier light caught the silver surface between them. Months ago, her colleagues had bullied her into serving the feared Korean Mafia boss because they thought one trembling tray would get her fired. But by the end of that night, Tiniola Adebari had exposed the lie hidden inside the dish, the fraud hidden inside the cellar, and the cruelty hidden inside a restaurant that called itself luxury while feeding on the people who served it.